Welcome to Watching Trees Grow, a podcast by Troutwood. I'm Gene Natali. This is week 4 of office hours. Just got back at my desk. So we hit almost the midpoint in the semester at the personal finance course I teach at the University of Pittsburgh. I want to break down, just for those who've been following this journey, weeks 1 through 4 are very debt and budgeting oriented. It's the necessary steps to understand the things we own, the repayment of the debts we owe. But today's class was the first in bridging to the investment side of the conversation. The title for this section of office hours is Ask Money Questions. In 7 years of teaching and hundreds of classroom presentations, I cannot overemphasize the importance to students listening. If you have a question, have the courage to ask it, particularly when it comes to money, because it's your money. You work hard for it. You deserve to have answers to the questions in your mind. So I want to strongly emphasize that. I'll tie that in with some of my observations on today's class. And when I say we bridge to investing, we spent the last 5 minutes of class beginning to form that bridge to the investing side. Part 1 of class, I want to give a shout out actually to a past podcast guest, Kweku Obed with Marquette Associates. Kweku was a guest about a year or so ago. He's an investment consultant, and I had my students listen to the episode as a homework assignment over the past week, and then each were instructed to apply 3 of Kweku's principles to the construction of their financial plan. I strongly recommend, if you've not listened to that episode, jumping back and giving it a listen. Kweku is a professional by every measure. He is an incredible human being. And I'm going to share, I received 120 submissions from students in terms of how Kweku's episode influenced them. I'm going to share the 3 that were most consistent across my student base so that the Troutwood community can learn from Kweku's experience from that episode. Those 3 takeaways, and remember, this is within the context of building a financial plan. What can we learn from Kweku? First, don't let emotion dictate my financial choices. And intentionally, I say my, because I'm writing from the standpoint of my students. So I was extremely proud to see how many students had listed that as an actionable item. Don't let emotions dictate my financial choices. Number 2, I have a deeper understanding of what it means to be a long-term investor. Kweku, fist bump. That's awesome. These are college students learning what I believe is a critical life lesson, and that's the importance of being a long-term investor. And then third, and this was more personal than financial, Kweku's sincerity really shone through, and a large number of students just honestly wrote they felt comfortable knowing that they too could pursue a career that they were passionate about. Kweku's passion for his career shone through in the episode. So that was the start to the class. And I share that because, knowledge is obtainable. When it comes to building our financial future, age is a very important ingredient. Paired with knowledge, we can do some really, really awesome things. And Kweku had a great deal of knowledge, and we're doing the same assignment. I don't want to steal the thunder for next week, but we have the same assignment running over the next week, and I'll share some on that next episode. Shifting from that conversation on Kweku, we wrapped up our conversation on debt. I had an experience I haven't personally experienced teaching before. Students email me their credit card questions, generally one-on-one. It's not a conversation that gets too intimate in the classroom. And over past years, the number of students in my various classes with credit cards is always fairly small. Today, when I asked how many students have a credit card, a fairly large number, and I want to say almost half, raised their hands, which surprised me because it hadn't happened in past classes. But what surprised me more was that nearly all of them were utilizing the Discover student card. So we'll do some additional homework on that. I know we've done in the past some deep dives into the credit card space, but I thought that was great. And it fostered some really great conversation on the importance of paying back that credit card bill every month, getting that good habit formed now in the classroom. And even if you have that 0% APR out of the gate with the credit card, pay it every month. Build a habit. Don't risk turning that 12-month grace period that some of the student cards offer when the interest rate kicks in. Don't risk turning that 12-month mark with having a balance on that credit card. We went from that, and that was really it from the data. I felt really good that students at this point in the semester, 4 weeks in, understood their student loan debt, understood at least the good, bad of credit card. Mortgages and auto loans we're going to actually dive back into, because I view a house as an asset and a car also as an asset like purchase. And we're going to do some modeling that I'll share in future episodes of Office Hours. But we went right from wrapping up debt into final questions on the budget and what we term a balance sheet. If this is the first time you're hearing the word balance sheet, a balance sheet is a summary of your assets and your liabilities. Assets are what you own. Liabilities are what you owe. For most of my students, our assets are, we don't have many at that point, right? We are not in the working world. We haven't made a great deal of income yet. Maybe I own the car I drive, some jewelry, etc. And our liabilities also tend to be pretty narrow, with the most common being student loans. So we built those out. We used in class Google Sheets. Excel works great. There's a lot of very good budgeting apps. The advice that I gave my students, the advice that I want to give the Troutwood community, when it comes to building a budget, build it once and build it so well you use it for the rest of your life. I gave the example in class today that I probably only spend 30 minutes in my budget any calendar year. My wife and I use Google Sheets, and we have a shared file. And it works great for us because we're able to just maintain and monitor our spending habits and add rows as necessary. So to Troutwood community, as you are maybe gaining that confidence to build your first budget, build it so well the first time you use it for the rest of your life. And we did get questions here, even at the week 4 part of the semester. We had questions on, Gene, how do I build a budget though? How do I exactly build one? We've done some modeling at this point. I appreciate that. And that's why we titled this episode Ask Money Questions. It's not my students' fault if they leave this class not knowing how to do this. It's certainly my fault as the instructor. And I want to echo that I can do my job better if students ask questions. So please ask questions. Troutwood community, ask questions. If you have a blank spreadsheet in front of you or a blank notepad and you're saying, but I don't know where to start, send us a message. We'll help you get started. I will tell you the 5 categories that we broke our budget into today in class, and hope that this helped kickstart the conversation for you. Those 5 categories: taxes, general spending, which important factor, general spending, we did not include credit cards. Credit cards, we took the assumption we were going to pay it off in full every month. And with that assumption, we're comfortable lumping in our Target purchases, the cup of coffee at Starbucks, a trip to Trader Joe's, comfortable lumping those under the credit card with the handshake deal that we're going to pay it off in full every month. We then had a category for charitable giving and the assets we own. In those assets, we included our bank accounts, our investment accounts, our Roth IRA, all of the things that we own. That was just a template to get started. Remember, within the context of building a financial plan, of modeling, the first line item should always be your savings goal, and then back into your expenses from there. Questions that came up, hence the title for this episode. First, I see this every year. Gene, how do I find accurate reflections of what my salary is likely to be and what it will cost to live in the city that I want to live in? My personal philosophy when you are exploring that first career or where you want to live after school and you're building a budget and a financial plan, under promise and over deliver. And what I mean by that is model your future financial self off of a smaller salary than maybe you even expect to get and higher expenses than you maybe expect to pay, which will prevent the opposite of that, which is modeling for too high of a salary, too low of expenses, and finding yourself on the heels of your feet more quickly than you otherwise might. And that little bit of extra, the surplus and your budget shrinking pretty fast. That's why questions matter. When you ask questions, you can prevent money mistakes. If you don't ask questions, there are other ways. Certainly Google it. There are other ways to get information. But I have learned that if you have a question, you are not the only one with that question. Have the courage, raise your hand, and for the sake of those around you, ask the question. We bridged at the final episode, in the final 5 minutes of class, we did play one game of Troutwood's buy, sell, hold. This is an app we released last week. It's an investment education game. The simplicity of buy, sell, hold should not take away from the brilliance of the learning outcome. It teaches students how to become long-term investors. I did not give my students any instruction today. We played one round. We played the Great Depression starting in 1926. And this was based off of a question that a student did ask saying, Gene, how do I know when to buy and sell stocks? And we used that question as a tangent to teach through buy, sell, hold. We played the Great Depression, and I think a couple of the students did know what we were doing. I appreciated their courage and honesty after the game. The game only takes 60 seconds to play. I appreciated those that said, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just touching the buttons, but the dollar amount I see is quite large. Intentionally, I said, stop. We're not going to dive into this today. This is worth next week's class. So we're going to play one game of buy, sell, hold every week. We're going to do it for two reasons. The first, to teach students how to become long-term investors. The second, to give those same students the confidence to stay long-term investors. That's it for week 4. So stay tuned as we bridge to the investing part of the conversation. And we do have to tie in both the applicability of insurance and emergency funds to the bigger financial plan. Appreciate you tuning in to Office Hours and watching Trees Grow, a podcast by Troutwood.